Hey, this is Mr. V, and in this video, I'm going to talk about decimal division. Two basic situations come up: division by a whole number or division by a decimal. Let's look at the first situation. When you divide by a whole number, life is good. You just need to set up the problem as if it was a regular long division problem. So, for example, we're doing 23 divided by 8. Set it up like any other long division problem. The only thing is, when you know you're going to be dividing decimals or that you're going to end up with a decimal in your answer, place the decimal in your quotient right away. Here's the decimal in 23. We don't normally see it, but it's there. Line it up, put a decimal in your quotient, and then proceed. 8 goes into 23 two times. 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract, you get 7. And this is an important little step here. You have to realize that 23 is the same as 23.0. You can add zeros here, it doesn't change the value. And that allows me to keep going. I now can do 70 when I bring down the 0. 8 goes into 70 8 times, 64. Now, this all assumes you know how to do long division. If you don't, you need to go look that up. But keep going here. I can add another 0. It doesn't change anything. Bring that down. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 56. Subtract 4. And one last 0 will do it. When I bring that down, I get 40. 8 goes into 40, nice and even, 5 times. Therefore, 23 divided by 8 equals 2.875. Now, another situation that comes up, still dividing by a whole number, but you might be dividing a decimal by a whole number. So, for example, let's go with 0.259, that's 259 thousandths, divided by 7. Once again, life is good. Dividing by whole numbers, straightforward. You have nothing to worry about. Just set up your problem, 0.259 divided by 7. And recall that, very important, to place your decimal in the quotient. 7 goes into 0, 0 times. 7 goes into 2, 0 times. It does not go. 7 goes into 25, 3 times. That leaves me with 21. Subtract, I get 4. Bring down the 9. 7 goes into 49, 7 times. So 259 thousandths divided by 7 is 0 and 37 thousandths, or 0.037. I'll give you a couple problems to try. I'd like you to give these a shot. Make sure you're okay with this. So, for example, you can try, in this case over here, where you're dividing a whole number by a whole number, 17 divided by 8. And over here, where you're dividing a decimal by a whole number, please give this a shot. 0.168 divided by 6. Pause the video. Do these problems and come back when you're done. I'll work through them quickly and move on to dividing by a decimal. Okay, we're back. Here we go. 17 divided by 8. 17 divided by 8. I'm dividing by a whole number. I'm not worried. I only have to place my decimal where it belongs in my quotient, and I proceed. 17. 8 goes into 17 2 times. 2 times 8, 16. Subtract, I'm left with 1. I can add a 0 here. 17 is the same as 17.0. Bring it down, I get 10. 8 goes into 10 once. Notice how I line up my digits in the quotient with my digits in the dividend. It's important. Keeps things organized. Leave me with a 2. Add another 0. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 8 is 16. I'm just going to extend this line. 16, subtract 4, and once again, one last 0 will do it. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 17 divided by 8 is 2 and 125 thousandths, 2.125. Over here, 168 thousandths divided by 6. Just set up normally. I'm dividing by a whole number. I have nothing to worry about. Place the decimal in the quotient. Proceed. 6 goes into 0. Nope, it does not. 0 times. 6 goes into 1. 0 times. 6 goes into 16 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract 4. Drop down the 8. 6 goes into 48 8 times. That's it. This is 0.028. 0 and 28 thousandths. That's it for dividing by a whole number. Now moving on to division by a decimal. All right, the main thing to remember in this part is that you don't want to divide by a decimal. So, for example, 18 divided by 4 tenths. 18 divided by 0.4. Your first task is going to be to get rid of that decimal in your divisor. And we do that by multiplying both the dividend and the divisor by 10. Or more practically speaking, we move the decimal over one place here to get rid of it. So what do I end up with? I'll end up with dividing by 4 instead of dividing by 0.4. Just to make that clear, I'm moving that decimal to this location. That's what happens when you multiply by 10. It moves the decimal over. If I move this decimal one place over, I've got to move this decimal in 18 one place over as well. What happens when I move that decimal one place over? Well, 18 becomes 180. Again, you can see what happened. We multiplied both by 10. And now I've got a division problem that is exactly like what I've been doing before, dividing by a whole number. 180 divided by 4, decimals here in 180. There goes my decimal in the quotient, and I proceed. 4 goes into 1. Nope, it doesn't. 4 goes into 18 4 times. That's 16. Subtract 2, drop the 0, 20. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Hey, what do you know? It turns out that I don't need to go into the decimal positions or decimal place values for this problem. That's my answer right there. 18 divided by 4 tenths equals 45. Here's one more example. This time, a decimal divided by a decimal. So, for example, 0 and 654 thousandths, 654, divided by 6 tenths. Once again, I don't want to divide by a decimal. This does not bother me. A decimal in the dividend is no problem. We've seen that now. A decimal in the divisor is annoying. We're going to move the decimal point one place over in both of these so that this here becomes a 6. This becomes 6.54. These are equivalent problems. My answer won't be any different by doing this. If I multiply both by 10, my answer remains the same. 6.54 divided by 6. Now I'm happy. I can set this up. We've been doing these problems. It's just division by a whole number. 6 goes into 6. Oh, place the decimal in the quotient. 6 goes into 6 once. Subtract. 6, 0. Bring down the 5. 6 goes into 5. It does not go into 5. Put a 0 here. Bring down the 4. 6 goes into 54 9 times. 654 thousandths divided by 6 tenths equals 1 9/100ths. At this point, I'd like you to try a problem or two. Here's one that follows this model. 15 divided by 0.6. And here's one that shows a decimal divided by a decimal. Let's go with 1 328 thousandths divided by 4 tenths. Pause the video, give these a shot, and when you come back, I'll work through these and that'll wrap it up. Okay, here we go. 15 divided by 0.6. First thing to do, get rid of that decimal in your divisor. This problem is equivalent to, and move the decimal over one place in each number. It's the same as 150 divided by 6. I had to move the decimal once here, so I move it once over here. It becomes 150. And I set up the problem, excuse me, like any long division problem. 150 divided by 6. 6 goes into 1. It does not. Oh, decimal. Place it. Even if you don't need it, so what? It'll be there in case you do. 6 goes into 15 twice. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract. I get 3. Bring down that 0. 6 goes into 30 5 times. And that's that. Now, I did not place the decimal originally because I knew this was going to work out evenly. But you really should put it there just in case you do end up going into decimal places. Over here, I don't want to divide by a decimal. That is my main concern. Ignore this decimal here. It's not a big deal. Don't ignore it, but don't let it worry you. This here is the problem. I don't want to divide by a decimal. I'm going to move this decimal over one place to get rid of it. In other words, I'm multiplying by 10. If I do it here, I need to do it in my dividend. Otherwise, I would be changing the value of my answer. 13.28 is what I end up with, divided by 4. We set this up, 13 and 28 hundredths divided by 4. Decimal here in my dividend, place it in my quotient, and I will need it in this case. 4 goes into 1. No, it does not. 4 goes into 13 3 times, giving me 12. Subtract, I get 1. Bring that 2 down. Since I've already placed my decimal there, I don't need to worry about anything. 4 goes into 12 3 times. That's 12. 0. Don't stop here. Some people stop when they hit that 0. There's another digit left to divide. That 8 has to be taken care of. Bring it down. There's 8. 4 goes into 8 2 times. Therefore, 1 and 328 thousandths divided by 4 tenths is 3 and 32 hundredths. And voila, that's how you do it.